Life Audio.
Welcome to the Team Us podcast, where we share how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Hi, everyone. We're Ted and Ashley Slater. When you got married, you probably received a lot of advice. I know we did. Well, today we're talking about the best marriage advice we've ever received. We'll also share with you some favorite words of wisdom our friends were given. So, Ted.
Yes.
You and I love food.
Yes.
So let's talk about food for a bit. And for those listening, I promise it'll tie into today's topic. So, Ted, do you remember that Food Network series, The Best Thing I Ever Ate?
I enjoyed that show. Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun.
So what's the best thing you ever ate?
Well, one of the worst things I've ever eaten is my fingernails. I do that far too much. I'm a biter.
But you keep doing it, even though they don't taste good.
I know, it's dumb. But there you go. I do dumb stuff. The best thing?
The best thing.
I'm going to give you three things. The best thing I would say is that one, what was it, the avocado burrito deep
was it
fried?
Avocado egg roll
That's
at
it.
Taqueria Tsunami in Marietta Square.
Marietta Square. We've had it several times since, but the first time was like, holy moly, this is so good.
It's funny because that's what I was going to say.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I always am up for a fried chicken. I love fried chicken thighs, just Southern, whatever. And then I love a good curry. Oh,
okay, but
curry.
like, where have you had the best fried chicken?
Yours?
I don't fry chicken. It's very hard to cook when we don't have a deep fryer.
I don't know. Safeway, Fry's, wherever.
Grocery store variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Indian food.
Uh-huh.
When we lived in Georgia, there was a restaurant. What was it? Pinch of Spice.
Oh, my lands.
Oh,
Shout out to
So good.
Pinch of Spice. What's
Yes. If you're ever in, Kennesaw, Georgia,
Yeah.
eat at Pinch of Spice.
Yeah.
On Barrett Parkway.
It's in a strip mall front thing. It's really good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. But
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And today,
that
okay.
was fast. What about pickles? You like
I
olives
do like
and
pickles. I do.
I was
Pickled okra.
got this alert today from PayPal that you had ordered something from Olive My Pickle.
Yeah. It's like pickles and okra and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add on the best things I've eaten because the Indian restaurant and the avocado egg roll, that was what I was going to say. There was some dessert I had at
You like
some
my cooking.
restaurant.
I've been smoking meat lately.
Yeah. Your pulled pork.
Right.
Really
But I
good.
converted to carnitas. Carnitas.
We've been making a lot of nachos
Oh, yes.
with it lately.
Nachos libres.
Oh, my word.
All right, let's get going.
Okay, well, first we're going to take a short break. But after this break, we'll talk about the best marriage advice we received, and we'll share some thoughts from some of our friends, too. So there's a lot of marriage advice out there. So I was thinking back to when we first got married and words of wisdom that were shared with us. And there are two pieces of advice that stand out to me that I think have served us well over the last 21 years. The first one is, and you'll remember this, when we did our premarital mentoring, we had to read or listen to, I don't remember. Was it an audio cassette?
Audio cassette.
It was When Sinners Say I Do by Dave Harvey.
Yeah, that's a happy title there.
I know, it sounds like a downer, right? Before you get married.
You sure you want to do this? You're marrying a sinner.
Let's step back and think about it. So, but I thought it was super helpful because I think it reminded us that we were both sinners. We weren't going to be perfect. We weren't going to do this thing perfectly. Mm-hmm. And it spurred us on to enter marriage with, one, an attitude of awareness for our own weaknesses and our own sinful tendencies, and also to have an attitude of grace for each other.
Right. We probably talked about this before on the podcast, right? Probably. But yeah, I found that helpful, that I appreciate the grace that Ashley shows toward me when I express my sinful side, which is the outside and the inside.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't. Well, like in my actions and in my heart.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay.
And so, if there's something that Ashley doesn't sin very often, but
that's not true.
I could probably think of something if I think really hard. And then, of course, I would find myself wanting to extend grace toward her to reciprocate. That's what you do. The other thing is that we haven't done this as much, but there is this opportunity in this understanding of you're marrying a sinner to point out sinful things in that person. And they're expected to listen and see it as an opportunity to grow.
Right. And I did want to clarify that showing grace to each other does not mean that you excuse or overlook like habitual sin.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know, as you were saying, it gives us the opportunity to point things out. And hopefully we do it with a communication sandwich or, you know, kindly and lovingly. Try. Doesn't always happen.
Yep. Not a seagull sandwich.
And if you don't remember what a communication sandwich is,
buy the book.
It is in the book, and we've talked about it on the podcast. But it's also this idea of layering affirmation with constructive criticism with affirmation, kind of like you do bread, meat, bread.
That was really well explained. Maybe next time you could like shorten it, but you did a great job this time.
Thank you for the example of a communication sandwich. Okay. Yes. So I said there were two that stood out to me.
Yes. The second one was.
The second one, and I talk about this in the book, and I talk about it after what I call the great apostrophe scandal of 2002. I'm not going to explain that. You can read the book to find out that. Or I think we talked about it in one of the very early episodes of the podcast. But it happened a few months before our wedding. And I was working at Regent University at the time, where we both attended grad school. And I was standing in my boss's office, and he had been married like 30 years. And he really took that whole situation well.
Yeah.
Like he had so much grace and just kind of, you know, didn't think it was a big deal, even though there were other people who did. But he was telling me how often he deferred to his wife's preferences. Okay, and this is not one of my favorite advice, because he talked about deferring to his wife's preferences. I mean, that could be what people are thinking as I'm saying it right now.
It just works. It's good.
And it wasn't because he was like a pushover. He just determined if something meant more to her than it did to him, then why couldn't he give in? So I think we've been practicing that ever since. We call it our 49-51% policy.
Right. Yeah.
And it basically boils down to us saying yes to the other if our preference isn't strong. And we use it more for the little stuff, like, where do you want to eat tonight?
Right.
Or, I can't think of something else. But we don't use it for things like, should we buy this house? Or should we...
car. I think our car, I was like, I may have been like, status quo, let's just stick with our Nissan Quest. And you're like, maybe it's time to... pull the trigger and get a used Toyota Sienna. Maybe. And I'm like, maybe. Okay, that's a good idea.
Although you were the one who wanted to get a Toyota Sienna. It was your idea.
Yeah. How old is our car? 13 years?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good used car.
Yeah. But like, we didn't do it with naming our kids or buying a house. Those are big decisions. It's not like those we had to like agree on. I mean, we might even be like, hey, what kind of tree do you want to plant in the front yard? I don't know. I don't have a strong preference. Do you?
Okay.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
I think it's a good advice.
Okay. What about you? You think of any favorite marriage advice?
Oh, come on. Those are my two favorites.
See, we cannot have the same favorite food and favorite marriage advice. There's got to be something. It's been a long time.
Those are my two.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. We're in agreement today, apparently.
I mean, those are good. How about don't worry about letting the anger go down on your day thing? What?
Oh, this whole thing about don't let the sun go down on your anger.
Right. I think sometimes you're not able to resolve things before you drift off to sleep. Sometimes you need to put a pin in it and say, hey, I love you. I don't know how to process or resolve this right now. We'll circle back tomorrow to make sure we don't sweep this under the rug, and we'll deal with it properly. But still a little myth, but I don't know how to talk about it right now. So
what you're saying is taking that advice from Scripture literally word by word.
Right.
Instead of the intended, perhaps, meaning, which means don't harbor anger and refuse to address it. I think that's how we
I'd rather take a day and a half to properly resolve an angering situation rather than improperly resolve it and just saying, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, and sometimes, I mean, I think back, it's Shante Feldhein's book about, what was it, for men only and for women only. She talks about how sometimes it takes men.
By the way, I've read the For Women Only book.
That's okay.
Tell me, buddy.
Anyway, she talks about how it sometimes takes men longer to like process that kind of emotional stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes you just can't resolve it and say we had a disagreement at 8:00 at night.
Right.
You know, I don't think staying up and exhausting ourselves trying to figure it out when we're already tired and upset is going to be helpful. Sometimes sleeping on it works. Yeah. Anyway, so I've asked you
there's one for you.
I've asked you your favorite food. You told me the worst thing you ever ate.
Okay.
And then I asked you your favorite marriage advice, and you told me marriage advice that you don't like.
I'm a contrarian.
That's okay. Makes for an interesting kind of talk. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mentioned that I also asked some of our friends for the best marriage advice they received. So after this break, we'll share what some of them had to say. So I recently asked our friends on Facebook to share the best marriage advice they've received, and we got some great answers. So what I'd love to do is share some of those and then give some of our own thoughts and how we've seen some of the advice play out in our marriage. Okay, so first one. Anna wrote, assume the best of each other. And I love that one because that's something we've tried to put into practice. For us, this idea of assuming the best, I think, comes from 1 Corinthians 13. The Amplified Bible phrases verse 7 this way. It says that love is ever ready to believe the best of every person.
What do you think she meant by that? Do you think she was trying to, get her husband in trouble?
By saying assume the best? Oh, my word. Okay. So we don't always succeed at assuming the best.
Yeah.
We've had a few instances lately where you will ask me a question, and for some reason, I assume that you're criticizing me.
Right. And it's simply a question.
Yeah. And I've been kind of trying to analyze myself on that. Why do I do that? But we don't need to do that here.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it'll be a future episode.
Yeah.
But you will kind of pause and go, wait a minute. How are you interpreting that? But that's been helpful to me because it's helping me realize that I do that.
Yeah. I think recently I asked you, are you going to heat up a sandwich or something like that? Because I wanted to know, do I have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, you were asking if I was going to trim my eyebrows.
Something like that. Your eyebrows. So heat up a sandwich, trim eyebrows, same thing.
I mean, both those things happen in the bathroom. So
yeah, but I was simply wanting to know if there was time for me to take care of business.
Yes, you did not add that because I went to use the bathroom.
No.
You just asked me, and I responded basically why? You don't think I have time to do it now? Or I don't remember. But yeah, this is real life. Married life at 21 years in, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Amy said, take time to set goals together personally as a couple and as a family. That way you're still on the same page and you know why you're doing what you're doing and doing it together. So I think when we first started dating and first got married, we definitely did this sort of thing. I mean, we made sure we got on the same page literally. And I think we've talked about that a lot on the podcast too.
Do you mean literally?
Yes, we took pieces of paper and we wrote down our goal. I do mean literally.
Oh.
I am not a sloppy user of the word literally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I think that maybe we've been slacking a bit as the years have gone by in that we don't do it formally. We might do it informally, hey, we should plant some trees this spring, or let's get out of debt, or, Yeah.
When I think of setting goals, I think of Stephen Candace.
Waters. Yeah.
Because I used to work with him. Candace is an author. And they make it a priority once a year, usually at the beginning of the year, to formally do this. Sometimes they get away from, they go on a little staycation, or they go away somewhere to a cabin, and they literally write down their goals for the year and a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, that kind of thing. And we've never done that, but I think what they're doing is really admirable. I think it's really cool.
It's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have
very intentional.
Honestly, we have a hard enough time committing to a weekly meal plan because we might not feel like eating what we've planned for that evening. I think we could do better at doing a year-by-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think a 5-year plan is great, but I have found, at least in our life together, God likes to throw curveballs in there. And sometimes we end up totally going in a different direction than we thought.
Sure. Yeah, you can make a plan and head that direction with the understanding that the direction may change.
Yeah. We order our steps, but God directs our way. So it's not a bad thing to be intentional. So I think we could do better in that area. Maybe we can be inspired by Stephen Candace.
There you go.
All right. So another friend, also named Anna, said...
I think she pronounced her name Anna.
Oh, this one's Anna?
Mm-hmm, like the princess.
Maybe. I don't think so.
Okay.
But, we can say that.
Okay.
Okay. So love your spouse second, God first, then spouse, and then everyone else. Nothing but your relationship with God comes before your relationship with your spouse. Not your children, your job, your hobbies, your church. Your spouse should be your main priority outside of your walk with the Lord, and the overflow from those relationships will bleed into other areas of your life. And then my friend Nicole chimed in with something similar as the advice she'd give a couple. And she said, because I asked, okay, what's the best marriage advice you've gotten? Mm-hmm. And what advice would you give a newly married couple? So she said she would tell a newly married couple, put your marriage above everything else, even above your kids. You can't lead a family without having love for your spouse. Be the best example for your children.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And we actually have an episode on this called Why Your Spouse Comes Before Your Kids. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. It's a while back.
I mean, especially when the kids are young, you're necessarily going to have to give more attention to the kids, right? More time and so on. But at the same time, your spouse should be the priority as far as, I don't know how to finish that sentence. You know what I'm saying.
I think it's interesting too, because as our kids have grown, how we prioritize time together looks differently. Like when they were little, it was always at night when they went to bed because they went to bed at 7. Now we have a bunch of teenagers and they don't. So we have to find other times during the day, like recording a podcast gives us a chance to just sit down and talk uninterrupted, or taking a walk, or going out for dinner or lunch. Since we both work at home, we can do lunch sometimes. But I'm excited because the next episode of the podcast, we actually have an interview with James and Arlene Pelican.
Oh, they're cool.
And they are going to share thoughts on how you can make your marriage take a front seat.
Yeah.
So they're going to give really practical advice on this. And I think...
So is that coming out next week?
That'll be the next one.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think they say some of the things better than we could.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So...
And she's got a better microphone than we have.
She's been doing this a lot longer than we have. Okay. So... The Anna who shared Assume the Best also said something that I think is really important. And this is what she would share with a newlywed couple. She said, your family of 2 is just as much a family with the rights to rituals as a family with children. Children join families. They do not start them. And
that's kind of wild.
Yeah. I actually wrote an article for Boundless years ago on that. And it's also something James and Arlene mentioned in their upcoming interview. But I think that's really important because there are, we have been blessed to have children, but there are a lot of couples who either choose not to have kids or just haven't been able to see that dream realized. And I think a lot of times they can maybe feel lesser than, but they're not. They're just as much of a family, the 2 of them, as, we are with our kids. So I'm really glad that she brought that up in her advice. All right.
One
more. This is the funniest one I received.
Oh, no.
So I had to share it. It's from Lynn. And she said her soon-to-be father-in-law told them, don't put up wallpaper together.
Don't put up wallpaper together.
I'm assuming because it will cause a fight. She didn't elaborate. But it kind of reminds...
She didn't elaborate.
It kind of reminds me of how I had a coworker who said, don't share a bathroom. And for the first few years of marriage, we didn't share a bathroom, and it worked out really well. Didn't it?
Sure.
I mean,
we're still here.
Because I came from a family of all girls. So it kind of gave me time to ease into sharing.
In retrospect, it's kind of weird.
I don't know. We had extra bathrooms. It gave me time to ease into sharing a bathroom with a boy. It is an adjustment. A man boy.
Maybe I don't understand this advice because I kind of disagree with it. I think it'd be fun to put up wallpaper together.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when we're doing certain tasks, there can be frustration. Do you mean right or forward when I'm stringing wires through the wall?
That just happened last night. Yeah, we had different definitions of which direction was right. But we finally, after 10 minutes, we're like, wait a minute. What do you mean when you're saying this direction? And we managed to get through it without a fight.
Yeah.
But that's taken time. I think earlier in our marriage, we might have gotten in a fight.
Why do you not understand what forward means?
Yes. Why are you not being gentler with me?
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that's a lot of great advice for listeners to chew on. So after this break, we'll be back with this week's Us Time Challenge. All right. So for this week's Us Time Challenge, I say that those listening, sit down with your spouse and talk about the best marriage advice you've received. And ask yourself if you're regularly putting it into practice.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, you could also, a challenge could be do what you did on your social media platform, whatever of choice. You know, ask your friends, hey, what's the best marriage advice you've gotten? Or what advice would you give to somebody who's getting newly married?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
so
because
both.
It's kind of spreading.
Start a conversation.
Right. And it's also spreading encouragement to those who read it, and also maybe other
loves
people.
To give advice.
I know.
Come on.
This is true. Not all advice is good, but
True.
I think a lot of times the intention is good. Anyway, if you do that, tag us.
Yeah.
Because we'd love to see it.
Absolutely.
Or tag me.
Don't tag me.
Well, I'm
Tag
more
me.
active. Yeah. Tag Ashley Slater. Or we do have on Instagram, Team Us Podcast. Follow us there. Tag us on Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Team Us podcast. We're looking forward to the next time as we keep talking about how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Team Us with Ted and Ashley Slater is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review the podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.